I'm Nazir Bhatti from Lahore. Mr. John W. Kiser is with us. He is on visit to Pakistan, and today he visited Lahore and attended a lot of functions. Just now, we are at Markaz-e Ahle Hadith, Lahore. He had written a book on Amir Abdul Qadir. So I would ask some question about it. John W. Kaiser, you wrote a book titled Commander of Faithful, a story of true jihad. What is the background and philosophy of this book?
Background is or was an earlier book that I wrote about monks in Algeria. This was in the 1930s and 40s, and but that was past history. So this story had some appeal because I heard bits and pieces, and made me understand that Abdul Qadir was a figure of the 19th century that covered from the middle of Iowa to the middle of Russia, and he had, at the time of his death, was considered to be one of the great men of the century. So that's what made me think, well, I ought to find out more about this guy, and so that was what started the book project. But having also written another one about the monks and who they were and why they were killed, and nobody's really sure why they were killed yet, but I was sort of engaged with the Algerian conundrum, and I didn't have an agenda, I just wanted to educate myself.
So what impact this book had on society?
That's happening now. It's getting out there, and it's mostly in the hands of, well, I don't know if it's even true. It's in the hands right now of academics and people who study European history. Also some schools in Iowa and New Jersey and Massachusetts. They're drips and drabs, but it's becoming more and more of a sort of icon to be engaged with, because, as I say, he was embarrassingly popular among the intelligentsia in Europe, in the United States to a lesser extent, but still part of the elite that recognized value in the amir story. And I like exploring and learning about new stuff. So I was there to learn. I wasn't there to teach, so I just wanted to try to extract what seemed to me the most important elements in his story.
So, Kaiser, what inspired you? What was the source of inspiration for you? Whether personality of Amir Abdul Qadir, or teachings of Islam of tolerance, forbearance, acceptance of other religions?
Well, he was definitely acceptance of religions of all kind. Where he had some stricter responses was where he was a fighter who was fighting Arab tribes who were under the influence of the French, or between themselves, and he was basically subordinate to his father. His father was 75. He was getting a little old, and so he decided to let his sonny boy take over and become the chief representative of his tribe. And he was good at what he did, but he didn't like it because he was killing too many people, and he knew that the French were, in the end, they would outnumber him, and he'd be buried in the ground. So he decided to negotiate essentially a sort of a truce with the French, and then the deal was, well, we've laid down our arms, but I want to take X number of wives and number number of servants. He had a huge entourage, but he negotiated all these points in his favor, and then the French took him over to Lyon. This all happened really quickly, and they didn't know what to do, so they ended up sticking him in a castle for 5 years while they figured out, how to treat the amir. Some wanted to keep him there, some wanted to liberate him because he was obviously a man of some stature and popularity. And finally, he ended up in Damascus in I think about 1861, 1862, 63, and there, so he settled in, and I guess he was. He ran the. He was very thoughtful, and he also did something when he saw what's called that the. I have these little blockages from time to time. He was the Christian community was being punished by the Jews, or we don't know exactly who was punishing them. And he saw that these were innocent people and no weapons, and so he personally brought, his men and other people to fight back and get rid of these people who were killing innocent people. So he was just acting out his own natural instincts. You see good people or people being killed by other people who, have a grudge, and so he wanted to interject and do the right thing because he had the opportunity to save a lot of the lives of Christians. And that was then picked up by the press all over the world. And if you go on the internet and you type in Abdul Qadir and a few other letters, you will get a huge outpouring of literature that he's responsible for. So it's all on the internet.
Mr. John W. Kaiser, what is Islamophobia, and how you see it manifests in practical terms, and also what it has caused harm to the society, particularly in USA?
I would say it's being slowly digested because the actions which he was a part of were minimal in the sense of didn't take jobs away from people, and he didn't do anything that was outrageously inappropriate. But he was remarked upon as the news of his success in saving American lives, not only in the U.S. but also in Paris and other countries. And so he was alive, and well, he wasn't, but there were people who were trying to articulate what he represented, and what he represented was a degree of humanitarian goodness to help people who were being murdered, and that won a lot of attention, particularly in Europe, but also in Iowa and Georgia and places in the U.S. And that was, that's news you can look up in the newspapers. And the responses generally where people are amazed. We didn't know there were anything like Muslims over there. We never heard of these people before. So it was all new stuff for most Americans. And I think even in Europe, there were rumors, but it was basically the wealthy classes that recognized the importance of what the Amir did.
Do you think this Islamophobia has contributed to the tension between Islam and Christianity?
That's a good question. I don't. It certainly shouldn't, because there's nothing in the Quran that is anti-Islam, but there are people who misuse some of those texts. But I think to the extent that there's a problem, it's just that some people don't think he was a great man because he was Arab, and most people in the United States don't have that much contact with the Arab world. And I think that they were, I think if you're talking about today, today's world, I would say it's probably sort of mixed with people who are better educated and maybe travel a little bit, are more open to entertaining who this Amir guy was. And but it's, you got to do a little work. You got to read a book and think about it. I have a whole contest that I run with academics and others about the Amir, and see who has an idea of who he is and why. But it's exposure's good, but it's also bad if it goes into the wrong hands and people just twist the significance. But I think overall there's hope.
Why the United States of America is persistently confronting the Muslim states?
Well, I don't know that they are. I mean, we're very involved in North Africa and Middle East, and you know, out here, I think there are different levels of engagement. The people who sort of have jobs and their profession requires them to go out and connect with other parts of the world that can be sources of funding or new things. Certainly are folks who, like good haircuts. But it's, I would say it's hard to generalize, but I would say there's a type of ignorant person who is kind of a hostile ignorance, and then there are others who are ignorant because, and they say, well, I don't know, So there's I don't know what to think, and then there are those who have developed an opinion based on data or information that comes from sources that may not be the most reliable. And then people will take an occasion like we had in the Middle East after 9/11, that you just talk about 9/11 and airplanes, and all of the Muslim world is then sort of stigmatized because of this event that happened, 9/11, and so that becomes the representation of Islam is 9/11. There's very few Americans read the Quran, and so it sort of stops with Jesus, even though Islam incorporates Jesus. They don't get into that level of depth. It's just they don't like to work too hard.
Do you think that the clash of civilization truly exists in this world, or this is driven by the political agenda?
I think there's always political clashes of civilization on all kinds of different levels. You have them in Africa, you have them in the United States, you have them in South America. I mean, you have clashes all over the place, but it's when you have one group of people who want to preserve and there are other people who want to take. I mean, I think one of the things that would make the most help for everybody is for the press to report less about all this stuff, because bad stuff has gone on for centuries. It's not new. It's just the tools and maybe the scale of which people are subjected to being punished for, but anger and or attempts to enrich for whatever reason or another is something it's not new. It's just that the volume of stuff that you can now spit out into the public is so large, and the public by and large is lazy and just likes to read what's there, And so I think it's the people who consume who I think are most important, to try to help them say, hey Joe, I know that we've heard about this article about this guy, but maybe you ought to think of the other side of the coin. And there's a lot of one-sided, I think, presentation. Even Trump, who I find objectionable in many ways. He's really kind of funny in a way because he's an oddball, but I think he's capable of rectifying some of his behavior, but and he has a strong following, although I don't think that's going to last much longer. So he may do himself in. In the end, I like to rely on people's common sense. When you can vote, the common sense should be the attitude that you apply. But then a lot of people also just respond as a formulaic. If you're a Catholic, well, this is the way I vote. If you're a Mennonite, then you're going to vote the way Mennonites vote. And if you're a Jew, you write this way. And so we kind of get locked into different connections. And then, as I say, we're sort of dependent on newspapers, and newspapers are always kind of just want to talk about bad stuff because they sell more newspapers if it's bad stuff. So I think we have a corrupted system to some extent of learning about our own culture.
So my last question, how do you appreciate the services of Muslim Christians unity and interfaith harmony within Pakistan?
I don't have that much contact right now. I just know there was a time when Muslims were, in fact, not only instructed, but it was in their way of living. It was to be hospitable to Jews, Christians, and to get along. But as I say, you get these bad seeds. And the bad seeds, for some reason, tend to be more powerful than the good seeds. And we'll have to see. I haven't been following really politics that much lately, so maybe you can tell me. But I don't know. You tell me what you think about it, and you educate me.
Pakistan is a tolerant country, almost, alhamdulillah, and Qazi Abdul Khamosh has worked a lot on the platform of Muslim Christian Federation International. He had a lot of conferences, seminars, and visits in different churches and different madrasas. So he also worked on a madrasa project. So there are a lot of personalities who did this. Mr. John W. Kiser, thank you so much